Today's weekly Zoom is about our teens, our 15 to 18-year-olds, the high school ones, the ones that are doing a great job, hopefully, at launching into adulthood. And FYI, here's the first tip of today. They will only launch into adulthood if you allow them to. So we'll get into it a little bit better. Let me start off with housekeeping. The way that this works is that I speak in the beginning for a little while, and then I open up for questions after I speak. What I share about are pain points that I imagine you are going through at this time with your children 15 to 18 years old. And I like to do that because then you feel normal. Why do you feel normal? Because how can I guess what's going on in your house? Because of development, because of normative development. And a lot of the time, parents, especially parents of adolescents, think that there is something wrong when actually it's just normal development and part of personality of the person. And if I can guess, that means that it's happening to more people. It's not just happening in your household. Today, because I know that there's been a lot of questions around this topic, I will also be kind of talking about, well, when do you know if it's a problem? When do you know if it's depression and anxiety? So I'll handle that today as well. So again, after I share, then I open up for questions. If you want to ask me an anonymous question, you can ask your question in the Q&A capability of the Zoom meeting. If you're on your cell phone, you just touch the bottom of your screen, you press more, and then Q&A will show up. You go in there and you can ask me your question anonymously. If you don't mind and you're perfectly comfortable with asking me a question up front, you can write it in the chat, and or when I open it up for you guys to be able to use your sound, which I will do after I speak a little bit at the beginning with my little slide, you will be able to ask me live and in person. So let's start right away so that we can get through what we're doing today. So these are the pain points that I imagine that you are currently dealing with your 15 to 18-year-old, and most of these guys are in high school, so ninth grade and up. So what do I want you to think about as it pertains to adolescents in this age group? As it pertains to school, whether they are virtually going to school or where they're in the schoolhouse. It should have started in third grade, but definitely in high school, the most important thing that I want you to think about is that it's hands off. If you are addicted to the parent portal and you're checking it every single day, please stop today. Stop. Promise yourself, I will only check the parent portal on Tuesdays. Why on Tuesdays? Because it gives time for the teacher to put in all the information that they need to put into the portal. And most teachers, especially high school teachers, put in grades and put in information over the weekend or on Monday morning. So why do I want you to stay off of the portal? But Lina, it's high stakes. But Lina, they're applying for college. But Lina, because it's time for you to release the reins. See, if you stay on top of an adolescent and you're constantly telling them what possibly can go wrong or what possibly could happen, you don't give them the space for them to do something naturally. So adolescents are in the midst of discovering who they are and who they want to be. And there are a lot of big brain shifts, neurological shifts that cause this. And one of them is the decrease of information that may be harmful, right? So that area of the brain that tells us when things are dangerous tends to, it doesn't go completely to sleep in adolescence, but it kind of quiets down. So when they look at any opportunity, when they look at any interaction, when they look at any decision, they primarily see the pros rather than the cons, right? The credits rather than the debits of the scenario. So if you are the parent that's constantly on top of them about, but what about their homework? And did you talk to the teacher? And did you finish the plan? And did you fill out the college application? Their brain will naturally turn you off because you are falling under the con or the debit list of their pros and cons. Neurologically, their brain will be like, do not listen to the catastrophic thinking adult. Just take a look at your decisions, right? So it's better to once a week check in with them, or for those of you that get worried because they've shown you that they have a hard time being responsible because you have been their manager, right? I want, again, they're 15-year-olds. You didn't know me when they were in third grade. So what I would want most parents to do is, like, starting in third grade is when we teach them how to be responsible with homework on their own by letting them do it on their own. But if you haven't done that, please make sure that you just tell them, hey, I expect for you to be responsible with your work. And if you can't be responsible with your work, then, then I guess you're going to make it up on a Saturday when you want to do something fun. And that's it. Right. With school, and whether it's remote or whether it's in person, it's more about setting the space. It's more about setting your expectation. And please don't make it only about grades. Please don't make your expectation only about grades. Make your expectations about, turning in work on time. Make your expectations about the studentmanship. And what does that mean is that they're prepared, that they've studied, that they've put in the time, right? Because it's easy to get an A, especially if I can cheat. And if your expectation is an A, and I really want to go on the boat with my brother and my dad over the weekend, I may just cheat. But if you told them, no, my expectation is for you to be of integrity, and my expectation is for you to, study and do the best you can, even if you get a C, then I don't have to cheat to get the A, so that I can get what I really want, which is the pleasure of going on the boat with my dad and my brother over the weekend, because I don't want to have to make up the work. So with school, I know that you guys, it's been hard for some of them, right? It's been hard to kind of get back into the routine of the day-to-day. So again, all you have to do as it pertains to school is set the expectation that you expect them to be on their virtual schooling and off of their other devices while they are in school. Be conscious that a lot of them are FaceTiming with friends at lunchtime. They're FaceTiming with friends at their breaks, just like they would have done at school. So if you shorten up maybe their social media screen time availability, or you shorten up their other pieces, FaceTime and the way that they communicate with friends, we may have to increase, right? True story, that happened to me with my 15-year-old. I had a very specific amount of time that she can use FaceTime, but I realized that I had to increase it because she is FaceTiming with her friends between classes when they have those little breaks, and she is doing virtual. She's not on campus. You have to think about the school day in this new pattern as what would they have done naturally at school. And for a lot of them, they would have hung out with friends. So that moves me here into social needs versus family. And, this time has been incredibly difficult for this age group. When I talk to the parents of the littles, the preschool kids, they're all, oh my God, my baby doesn't see another child. Oh, what's that going to do to them? And, in early childhood, it's not perfect that they're not seeing other young children, but it's not that big a deal. Adolescence, it's a huge deal. Being social, being with my peers, being with those close friends and my tribe, is part of healthy, normal development in an adolescent. When I used to see teen clients, I don't anymore. I only see the parents. That was one of my assessments. Tell me about your friendships. Tell me about your social groups. Tell me, how are you as a friend? And FYI, different teens with different personality styles have different ways of being social. Some of them have that one really close friend and they're kind of like adjacent to the bigger groups. Some of them love to be in big groups and in several big groups, right? And some of them have, maybe that small group of 4 or 5. It's not how many friends or how much they go out with their friends, or um, whether they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, or they are meeting at Sunset Place. It's more about, or they're going to a party. It's more about, do they have a social circle? And since today I'm going to talk about, okay, when do you know there's a problem? When your adolescent has issues socially, that's usually a time, that's usually when my antenna goes boop. What's going on for this teen? So in this time that is so unusual, so a lot of you, this is a pain point, because for some of you, they're pushing and pushing and pushing to see their friends, to see their romantic partner, right? And they're pushing, for those of you that have been very careful to maintain, the medical piece of this. It's been hard for you to say no to them, because you also understand that social piece is so important. So my recommendation to you in this age group in particular is to say, okay, this is my dilemma. I know how important it is for you to see Susana. However, my concern is the health. So help me understand, how is Susana's family dealing with the health piece? Is it similar to us? Give me ideas. This is a great age group to include them in the decision making, especially when it pertains to their social needs, right? It is incredibly important to allow them to give you their point of view. I always tell parents that when a child is born, we teach them how to walk, how to eat, how to talk, how to go to the bathroom, right? Between 5 and 10, we teach them how and why, right? We continue to teach them how to go to school and why we go to school, how to make a friend and why we make a friend. And then from 12 up, we say how, why, and what do you think? So for a lot of you that you've been doing this friction, especially now with the illness, with COVID, and different families having different rules and values, it is so important to sit with your teen and walk them through your thought process as parents and as their caregivers, on why you've made the decisions, and then wonder with them, what do you think? And see if you can come up with a form of compromise. In my home, my compromise has been outside, 6 feet apart, masked. Because in my home, we're being very, very careful. And now we are thinking about creating a pod of her very close friends, right? So where I did the uncomfortable conversation, because I always have the uncomfortable conversation. I have the uncomfortable conversation of like, hi, is there a gun in your home? Not because I'm judging you, just because I need to talk to my child about what to do when they see the gun. Right? So anybody that has children under 10, if you're not having that conversation in the play dates and with your child, that is a dangerous choice. So it is important to and now I'm having the hard conversation with the parents of like, this is what we're doing, what are you doing? I would love to create a safety circle with you. But again, why am I telling you this about what I am doing with my 15-year-old, besides so that you don't think that I'm just this hoity-toity academic lady that's giving you child development information, but also because it's what I am saying. I had a conversation with my daughter. I explained to her, her parents explained to her, what were our thought patterns, and then she gave us information. And the beauty of that moment is that I got to see this bubbling, emerging adult. And a lot of the time, when you don't listen to your high schooler, it's primarily because you're afraid. You're afraid that they're not going to do it how you want them to do it. And believe it or not, a lot of the time, these teens have really good solutions. And there are those little tiny moments where you hear yourself coming out of their mouth. And you could just keep it to yourself, because that means that they integrated their value. But if you don't do how we do something, why we do something, and what do you think? And again, the what do you think isn't, and whatever you think is what we're going to do. It's let's have a conversation. High school is the time that I want all of you as parents to move from thinking that you're controlling them or talking at them. And now you're speaking to your adolescent the way that you would speak to a friend, in a respectful, curious, loving way. Not telling them your secrets. Okay, maybe how you would speak to a colleague, not a friend, because I don't want you like sharing your deep, dark secrets with your adolescent. Okay, so that goes back to, that's the same piece with guiding them towards independence, while managing this time. So, in there was I did a Facebook Live with the Miami Moms group, and we didn't get to it because we had all sorts of technical difficulties. But there was a parent of a teen that kept asking, "But what do I do about food? And what do I do about their room? It's such a mess." And then my if I would have responded as honestly as possible, I would have been like, nothing. Why are you driving yourself crazy about food and a clean room? Why aren't they responsible yet about food and a clean room? So the rule in human development, and what we want when we think about human development, is that the goal is for the person to be autonomous, meaning that I think for myself and I have a sense of self so I can make decisions. Independent, meaning that I take care of my health, I take care of my personal hygiene, I take care of my emotional world on my own. So that's independent. And to be aware of their community and those around them, their friends, their family, the community at large, right? That's the ultimate goal that I would want any parent to have when placing a citizen of the world out into the world. So with that in mind, you have to think about, can they do it? Now, will they do it is different, but can they do it, right? Can they do their laundry? Yes. Will they do it? Probably not at first, especially if you've been doing their laundry all along, but don't do it and then see what happens. And then tolerate that they are wearing the dirty, smelly, wrinkled shirt out of the hamper, and that they weren't able to plan. And then when they hit a snag, if you have allowed them to kind of learn how to do it, and you are not nagging them and on top of them, then it would build the space for them to come to you and go, "But mom, the shirt, how do I put it in there?" And then we could teach them. Right. So if you are also working from home while they are in virtual school, they can make themselves a sandwich. Just have the stuff available to them in the refrigerator. You can give them a budget, and they can order food for the week. But Lina, they're not going to keep that budget. Fine. Now they can't eat. Right. So it's about, how do you guide them towards independence? We keep letting go and letting go and letting go and letting go of what we know that they can do. And when we think, but they're not going to do it, that's okay. They maybe won't do it for a week or two, and maybe they will fail. But if you don't allow your adolescent to fail now, under your watch where you can sort of see that they didn't eat all day and now they can have the dinner that you made, right? They're going to end up making those mistakes when they leave your home. So it's better for them to get the kinks out and get the mistakes and get the failures out under your watch, under the same roof, rather than in or FSU or NYU's or Cooper Union's rules, right? So guiding them towards independence, we start with things that they can be responsible for in the routine, both for themselves and your home. And FYI, we're talking about 15 to 18-year-olds. In a perfect world, you would have started this back when they were itty bitty. Kindergartners can take their plates from the table to the sink. And then let's talk about anxiety and depression and how do you know about it? We are 6 months into 6 months into this whole ordeal, and there has been spikes in anxiety and depression in adults and teenagers. So I know that it's an important topic, so I wanted to kind of give you kind of information on the warning signs. This is not by any means me diagnosing any of your children. This is primarily for information, a true diagnosis. Like if you read this and while I talk about this and it sounds like your child, that doesn't mean that they have it. That means that you immediately stop, do not take $200, and you go get your child evaluated by a licensed professional. Not by, it's not your pediatrician, although they are a licensed professional, but they are not, their expertise is not mental health. Their expertise is general health. If your heart was bothering you, you would go see a cardiologist. You wouldn't necessarily go see your general doctor. So I'll say that at first. So there has been an increase in anxiety and depression, and we don't know why. Anybody that tells you that they know for sure why, it's not the screens, it's not just COVID, it's we don't know, right? Back when we lived through the Spanish flu, back when we had the last pandemic, we were not taking any data or research on children and teens. It just wasn't something that was done in 1918. So most kids that are feeling more depressed and feeling more anxious have these types of systems. So it's constant and repetitive worrying, constantly coming to you and asking and wondering, and to the point where you're like, you're 15, you're 17, why do you have mamitis, right? Where it just feels off, the constant worry and the constant, what we call ruminating, right? So repetitive thoughts. Now, this is hard to kind of tease out from, just COVID, right? So, for most of us, we are all kind of really repetitively thinking about our health and about COVID. Not everyone, but most of us, including myself, because it's alive and well. It's medical. So anxious wise, it is appropriate to kind of wonder about it. But for it to be constant and for it to be kind of like disruptive to their social world or the family interactions or just enjoying life in general, that's when I want you to have your antennae up and keep looking for more of these symptoms, right? A drop in grades and daily function, right? So if a lot of you, your gut will go off, something's off, because all of a sudden they just don't do what they used to do, right? If they were always running, right? Maybe they like running in the afternoon, all of a sudden they just stop doing it. If there was always music playing in their room, all of a sudden it stops going, right? It's just like these daily things, right, aren't happening. Now, don't count the ones that are going to virtual school in their pajamas, right? That's just COVID, right? But it's just the daily functioning of just not wanting to shower, not, these things, these basic hygienic things, they just drop out and get different. And again, less, interest in being with others, is always a big, or only being with that one person. Sometimes that can be an issue as well. Outburst and irritability. Now this one, outburst and irritability, you know it's worse for the 12 to 14-year-old. All 12 to 14-year-olds have outbursts and irritability, right? And or a version of it. 15 to 18, that should be starting to settle down. You should just get like, a high schooler should really be just like, really, mom, that's so silly, or really, dad, that doesn't make any sense, right? Their irritability and their pushback is more conversational rather than when they were 12 to 14. But when it is linked to anxiety or linked to depression, their irritability is about, where are my shoes, or what about the milk, and it's just this irritability about things not working out in what's in front of them, right? Just being completely overwhelmed and or irritable about things that are happening in front of them and in the present. So again, if you have all of these three things, please get an evaluation from a mental health professional, a licensed mental health professional. And stomach aches, headaches, GI problems, you've taken them to the doctor tells you, you took them to their pediatrician or their general doctor, and the doctor's like, look, this looks like it's stress, right? Or they have lower back pain a lot, and they have migraines a lot, and they have GI problems a lot. That is usually the physical manifestation of depression and or anxiety. For a lot of us, we don't like to think about the emotions that we're about. So the brain creates physical ailments, right? So migraines, lower back pain, and GI problems like irritable bowel syndrome are usually linked to a hyperactive nervous system, an anxious response. So if you've already ruled out the medical, like the physical medical, and it's attached to these other symptoms, it's something to look at. Hypersomnia or insomnia. Hypersomnia is sleeping more than 10 hours at a time. Now, this one is just like irritability and outbursts. That is a normal symptom of adolescence. They go to sleep really, really late, and they tend to sleep for 12 hours at a time. But insomnia is unusual in adolescence. So if you have insomnia and you have competitive, constant repetitive worry, and a change in their personality, again, that's a good time to have an evaluation. Now, if they're sleeping a lot and that's the only symptom, that's just their brain getting that extra sleep that it needs. So it's always these two, the physical and the sleeping changes must be linked to these other more emotional pieces for you to worry about it. Again, when an adolescent has no friends or no social interaction, that is a ginormous red flag for me. And actually, that one alone is reason for me to have your adolescent evaluated, right? I don't need friends. Who cares about friends? Friends are not important. No. So let's evaluate, because it may be something as easy as they're neurodivergent, meaning that they may be in the spectrum and we never caught it. And then the social piece is like just too overwhelming, so they're not bothering with it. But if your child is completely zero social, that one alone, I would love for you to get an evaluation. If you're fighting about drugs and alcohol, and it's both. right? Sometimes in Miami, because we are a primarily Latino type world, we don't think much about alcohol. But alcohol is actually harder to give up and easier to misuse. So if you've noticed that, they're going to more and more parties where there's alcohol, if you've noticed that, that they're talking that, this is a big, they may be dealing with their anxiety. They may be dealing with their depression with drugs and alcohol. It's self-medicating, right? Maybe they need Zoloft, and that's why they're smoking the pot. Because what a lot of people discover with pot and alcohol is that it makes them feel better. And nicotine as well. A lot of kids are vaping, and nicotine does the same thing that alcohol and marijuana does, which is to calm, depress the brain, right? So but it doesn't give you any of the mind altering side effects, right? So drug and alcohol use that you're constantly talking to your child about, please seek assistance. That's incredibly important. And locally, South Miami Hospital has great programs, and you can start there. And then repetitive risky behavior, like no matter what you do, they're taking the golf cart and driving it through the city, they're constantly lying, and then this one has to be linked with the other things. So these are the warning signs. Take a picture, take a look at it, and you can look at it through here. But if your gut is telling you something's off, something's different, look, all you have to lose is, the one-time rate of the person that's evaluating your child. If they were having a medical situation, you wouldn't wonder whether you need an evaluation. So don't wonder about this, because we want to get a mental health disturbance as early as possible, because the earlier we intervene, the better it is. All right, so I have spoken a lot. Now that leaves us with 27 minutes of me to answer questions. So I am going to open it up so that, it allows you to unmute yourself in case you want to ask me a question live. But I will start off with the one question that's in the Q&A. And if while I am answering this question, you have a question, make sure to type it into the Q&A. Because again, in the Q&A, you could do it anonymously or you could put it in the chat. So the question is, do you still recommend checking their phones for this age group? And what about putting their phones outside their rooms at night? We are trying to make him independent and responsible, but what is your opinion? Okay, in this age group, while you are paying for the phone, you can always let them know that you reserve the right to check their phone whenever you feel like it. It's kind of like the drug test at the corporation is kind of like when you work for big companies, they reserve the right to look at your email whenever they want to check. So is it fine to check their phone at this age group? Yes. You tell them, I am going to be checking your phone. And most high schoolers will look at you and say, why? Why do you need to do that? Why can't you just believe me? And be ready to answer that question. Because sometimes when we choose to check their phones, or when there isn't actually an antecedent, right? Like a reason for it, the message that we're sending them is that we don't believe that they're making the right choice. So it's a fine line. Can you and should you? Sure. But if they haven't given you reason to, I think that high school is a great time to kind of pull back. Now, they got themselves into trouble, they lied, that they have to earn your trust again. Sure, you could put that as part of the result of their dishonesty. Putting their phones outside of their rooms at night, again, I think that in this age group, if we would have done digital citizenship correctly, most of them will put it down, because they understand that sleep is part of their health and part of their personal hygiene. If you find that they're having a really hard time, then you can tell them, look, I am going to either turn off the Wi-Fi when I go to sleep, because that's one solution, just completely turn off the Wi-Fi in your house when you, the parents, go to sleep. No Wi-Fi, yes, they can, or turn off their phone, well, with your screen time ability that the iPhones have, right? And if you don't have an iPhone, then Life 360 can help you do that. That's a great software. But again, in this age group, definitely for middle schoolers, because they're still working on building the platform. But if you've gotten this far and they're showing you that they're not being respectful of their sleep, and again, respectful of their sleep in this age group is going to bed at 12 a.m. because their brain has a hard time going to bed earlier, and it's helping them, letting them know, hey, I know how hard it is to go to bed early because your brain just doesn't get tired, but we got to work on it, because you got to get up at 6, and 6 hours is just not enough, right? Like, I'm really good friends with one of my friend's daughters, and we were talking, and I said, hey, how are you taking care of your brain? And she was like, I'm sorry, Lina, I'm only getting 7 hours because I can't get to bed before 12. And, it was beautiful because, she's known me her whole life, and she knows how much I take care of the brain. And it was a brain conversation rather than like, you need to get your sleep. And then I can get to giving her tips on how to do it. And then we discovered that she's actually been napping midday for 2 hours. So she actually is making up the sleep. Again, not my daughter. That's an example of me, a different adult that's not my best friend, being an adult mentor to her daughter. That's a big trick in adolescence. Who are the adult mentors in your children's lives? So that's important. So it's incredibly important to have a conversation about the how we use a cell phone, why we use a cell phone, and asking them, what do you think? How are you being healthy with your digital use, and how are you being a positive digital citizen? So that's how I would handle that. There's another question here in the Q&A. My daughter asks me about masturbation. How should we respond as parents? That's a depends question, right? So for some, first, always share if you have religious beliefs around masturbation. I know that there are many types of religions that have a belief system around it. Share that belief as clearly as you can. Sometimes it's easier with religion because it's very specific, but make sure that you're telling them the why and what do you think. Now, masturbation starts as early as 4 because naturally in the human body, the clitoris and the penis works from way, way early. But once puberty hits, which could be anywhere, 9 plus, masturbation is the physical manifestation of the development of sexuality. So you can share the religious belief, but do let them know. Like, let's say that if your religious belief says, no, we don't masturbate because sexuality is about family and children, then you can share that with them, because that's separate from the physical, right? It's just like we don't pick our nose, right? Even though we want to get that booger out of our nose, no matter how old you are, right? If it's in there, you've learned how to do it nicely, right? So doing it nicely is the value, right? So with masturbation, it's perfectly normal to want to masturbate. And let's say that, no, Lina, religion is not an aspect for me. This is just my question about a healthy sexual development. Well, with healthy sexual development, the response is you have a clitoris, and when you touch it, it helps you orgasm. And orgasms are just like eating a delicious vanilla chocolate sundae. It's really good, and it's a way to attain pleasure when you and then speak about the physical aspects of masturbation. Let me debunk the myths. Masturbating is not going to create a sexual fiend out of your child. Masturbating is not going to make her want to have sex with someone. Masturbating is just like, eating a meal because I'm hungry, right? Her body is evolving and changing, and it's about having a conversation about it's another way to give ourselves pleasure. And then if you're going to talk about masturbating, then let's talk about sexuality. And a lot of you guys get stuck uh, talking about sexuality because you only talk about the sex part, right? And the sex part is easy. If you're heterosexual, a penis goes inside a vagina. If you're queer and LGBTQ, there's different ways that people satisfy each other with their genitalia. But what's most important about sexuality is the relationship aspect of doing of sexuality. And I want you to think and talk to them about the pitfalls. And again, how? Okay, well, no matter who you are and what sexual orientation you fall under, you will find ways to touch each other's genitals, so you seek pleasure with one another, and that's perfectly normal, right? That's just part of like how we're made as humans and as mammals. And two, all the different ways that somebody would have an interaction, right? And um, talking to them about the positives and the negatives of a relationship is incredibly important. Remember, do not catastrophize. If you give up your sexuality to another person, now they have power over you. That's a form of catastrophizing. So again, if there are religious beliefs, it's perfectly okay to share with them. It's kind of like telling a young child not to pick their nose, but know that picking your nose is normal. And masturbating is normal. So you're more teaching the value and the why of it, right? And in adolescence, be ready for your child to say, well, I don't believe that, mom. And for those of you that are very religious, that's incredibly painful. But it is appropriate for this age group. So I hope I answered your question. I think I went beyond the question, but yeah, there you go. And then another question that's here. Remember, you could put it in the chat or you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. What if you find a vaping device in their bag? What is the best way to approach him and what would be an appropriate consequence? Well, first and foremost, everybody, you can't have a consequence to a high school kid if you haven't already let them. So first and foremost, I want you to have rules about vaping. Right? And we tell them what. In this one, there's not so much of a how, because we don't have to do a how. You remember, we have to do how, why, what do you think. With vaping, we have to say the why. Why do we think vaping is inappropriate? And for most of you guys as parents of high schoolers, don't get in the weeds of like, again, being a fear monger. Explain your thought process behind it, right? Why you think nicotine is bad, why you think pot is bad, and what you think about the vaping devices, right? And then tell them, what do you think? And then say to them, well, absolutely, us as your parents 100% disagree with this. So if we catch you with the vaping, then you would have hurt our trust. And then whenever, in my point of view, when an adolescent hurts your trust, it's about them earning it again. And then you and whomever you parent this child with have to figure out how can they earn your trust again, right? So in this age group, as you've noticed, my answers are a lot about conversations, right? And currently what we know is that the vaping thing is primarily used for nicotine in the form of different types of flavors, or pot. because you can smoke pot completely undetected with a vape machine, because you know that smell of like smoking a joint or smoking out of any other, you know, a pipe or any other device, like, you know, people used to do back in the 90s. There's no smell. So then it becomes so the conversation about drugs and alcohol is as early as 6th grade. And it's not about fear mongering. It's about your point of view and what you expect from them. I think that this, you know, and it's about having the dialogue and what they think. Know that this generation of kids doesn't, they see marijuana and beer are equal. Actually, this generation of kids are, some of them think alcohol is horrible and they're cool with pot. So know that environment wise and culture wise, pot and alcohol are equal. Those of you that have any sort of alcohol or drug addiction in your families, this is important to know. Teach teach your teens that as part of their health and safety, they need to understand that there's addiction in your family, and that that is something that is kind of passed down generation to generation. We're getting more and more research around that. So one of your reasons for letting them know that you worry about the drugs and the alcohol can be because of the history of your family, especially if someone in your family is in the form, you know, using it inappropriately. Also, keep an eye out for that kid that, you know, your tummy, your intuition has been telling you that they're depressed or that they're anxious. And if you find a vape in their bag, you got to tell them, hey, I found this in your bag. Tell me, you know, what this is about. And if they say, oh, that's my girlfriend's, she dropped it in there, say, okay, it's cool, but let me have a conversation with you about this. And converse, communicate. So I don't see any more questions, but if you have some, this is your go. You could type it into the Q&A, or you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I'll open it up. Give you a little moment. Okay, so I will wrap it up for today, and I will wrap it up by letting you know, I've spoken about some serious things today, so that's a big deal. So if you want to talk to me directly for an hour and a half, where I listen to all of your concerns and conundrums and baffling interactions with your high schooler, you can call us and or go to the website and go to contact and schedule a parenting consult with me. I do exactly what I did right here, but it's individualized to you. You walk away with the why of their behavior, the solution, and a plan of action. That's an hour and a half, and it's $300 to meet with me. Or you could join my online parenting support subscription. It is a $49 subscription where there's a private Facebook group, there's a private area to the website where it has tons of developmental information that you could just go in there and peruse. And it also has a weekly Tuesday 1:00 conversation where the first 6 people that sign on can ask me questions, and I do a little bit of what I did here for you for free, but more specific to you. And so that's ways to get in touch with me. I know sometimes when you hear me out, when you hear me out, it's you get more questions than answers. And okay, so I'll give a little bit more time. There's one final question. Please talk about the relationship with boyfriend and girlfriend. Let me unmute you because I don't understand your question. What do you mean by that?
Hello, hi.
Hi. What do you mean by that? What do you mean the relationship?
My daughter wants to have a boyfriend, and I just want you, and she's only 14, and then I just want you to talk about that, like how to approach, how like if she wants to have the boy coming to our house and all that, how to talk about that.
Okay, so first of all, I want everybody to know that it's perfectly normal for them to get into romantic relationships. This is the first time that we get into romantic relationships, and it's normal. I think it's a beautiful, positive. It says a lot about your relationship with your daughter that she's not having a boyfriend at school and not telling you anything about it. Right? This is somebody that is important to her, and she wants you to meet them. So my recommendation to you is to, sit with whomever you parent with, and have clear expectations, right? To say to her, this is my home, please be respectful. I, as your parent, don't necessarily want to see you kissing on my couch. But I would highly recommend allowing this boy that she's interested in to come to your home, because then now you get to meet them and you get to see how who your daughter is romantically interested in, right? This is an opportunity for you to talk to her about your about sexuality, about the risks, about the wonderful part of it, and also your values and your beliefs around that, right? And that would be it. There is, if you go to the website, to the stopparentingalone.com website, I did like an hour-long Facebook Live about talking about relationships to our two kids, and it's really, really thorough. So if you go to the stopparentingalone.com and you hit the word blog, you can see, and you hit English, or you can hit search. You can put relationships and it should pop up, or romantic relationships and it should pop up, or you could put Facebook Live and it should pop up, or not. Just go through and you'll see that I did this Facebook Live. But I would say that it's normal. I know that for some traditional families, they think that it's too early for somebody for 14 to have a boyfriend, but there isn't an age. Know that naturally human beings have physical attractions to other people from 10 on. But we just have to be very specific. So the fact that your child is asking for, in a way, they're asking for your approval by inviting this person to your home. I want you to see that as a beautiful positive, and better in your home than at Sunset Place, or better at your home than your child lying to you and seeing that boy behind your back. Okay, last question. What's the appropriate response to a child who's allowed to manage his schoolwork on his own, but routinely doesn't complete assignments, resulting in serials which bring down grades? Parents are monitored only weekly, and we try to talk about positive and negative impacts of independence, but don't seem to be getting through. Sorry, grades are monitored weekly. What's the appropriate response? They're going to have a natural consequence of not being able, in high school. This is important, right? So, you check the portal on Tuesdays. You say, look, I saw that I checked the portal and I saw that you have a 0 in this assignment. Help me understand what happened. I don't know what happened. Okay, well, how can this not happen again? I don't know. Okay, it sounds like it's a little bit of planning, so maybe I need to buy you an agenda. So the first response is to get curious and to say, how do you think this happened? Not, what is this? Why do you have a 0? This is completely not negotiable. This is not okay. No. First say, hey, I saw the 0. Hey, this is dropping your grade. help me understand what happened. And then they will tell you. Sometimes they're like, they will be like, I totally forgot about it, right? And if they tell you I totally forgot about it, it's usually bad planning, right? They're using technology, they're using their memory, because they always imagine the good things, right? Oh, I'll remember that. And they're not writing it down. So then it's walking them through, what is the way that you can remember tasks. For some people, it's writing it on an agenda. For some people, it's having a whiteboard in the room and writing down what is expected. And for some of them, it's a reminder on their cell phone that goes off so that they themselves can check the portal, right? So first we help them. And the majority of the time when they're getting zeros on work, it's because of lack of planning. So again, I want you to help them do that, because if they discover in 9th grade, in 10th grade, and 11th grade that putting to-dos down on a whiteboard is really important, now you're going to have that when they go to college. Now, if they keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, after you have helped them figure out planning, then then they don't go on the boat with their father and their brother, and then they have to do the work. And then they have to write an email to the teacher explaining, they have to write an email to the teacher CCing you, explaining their irresponsibility. I actually would do that every single time. I need you to write the teacher right now and let her know, hey, I was irresponsible, la, 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 and CCing you, because I want that. That's a natural consequence and a natural responsibility for them to feel it. And that's it. But a lot of the time when they don't do their work, it's because they are magical thinking the way that adolescents do, only seeing the positive, and they imagine that they will not forget. But they do, because we're human. And if those of some of us write it down, some of us need a bulletin board, some of us need to give ourselves voice recordings, walk through how to plan and how to help them remember. All right, guys, so now you know how to get to me. In 5 weeks from now, I will be doing this free Zoom again. So just follow me on Instagram or Facebook, and that's a great way to get information of what I'm up to. Here are the handles, and also join my email list. You can text the word ready to 66866, and you will get an email saying that I am doing this free Zoom, or to spend an hour and a half with me in a parenting consultation, or join the online subscription. Okay, and all of these recordings are in the website under blog, and it says recorded talks, and then you can find every single free Zoom that I've done since the beginning of the pandemic. All right, everybody, until next time, bye bye.